Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurumedeva Sarvakarisha Sarvada. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha, Shri Sadguru Bhyo Namaha. Om Shri Umameshwaraya Namaha, Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha, Om Shri Ramachandraya Namaha, Siyavala Ramachandraya Namo Namaha, Om Dhyanamulam Guru Murti Mantramulam Guru Vakyam Pujamulam Guru Padam Mokshamulam Guru Kripa, Om Bhagavate Shri Sajanandaya Namaha, Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha, Shri Sadguru Bhyo Namaha, Shri Hanumate Namaha, Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Guru Stotram Akhanda Mangala Akaram Vyaptamena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Manyatha Shri Jagannatha Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarvabhutatma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Tameva Mata Chipita Tameva Tameva Vandusha Sakha Tameva Tameva Vidya Dravidam Tameva Sarvam Mama Devadeva Iti Guru Stotram. Okay, welcome everyone to today's Satsang. I cut the stotras a little bit today because I want to examine this verse, Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, verse number 5, for a little bit longer period of time, until about 8:15 or so, maybe 8:10, 8:15, and then we can finish at 8:30. This verse is pronounced like this. This is chapter 6, verse number 5. It is Uddareda Atmana Atmanam Natmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Yatmano Bandur Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. This is a very critical verse in the Bhagavad Gita, and this verse is perhaps the master key towards enlightenment. There are so many master keys, there's only one actually, truth is only one. So, by the grace of all the gurus, and I bow down to Sri Krishna Bhagwan and all the great sages to bless me today to try to understand this further. Again, this is for my own contemplation and development. We're sharing together. So let's get into this. We have been examining so many different ways of trying to realize God and all. That's all fine. This particular verse is much more psychological in nature. And it's applicable to anybody, whether they believe in God or any tradition. It doesn't make any difference who the person is. It's applicable to every human being at every time, under every situation, under every circumstance. So, there's a great truth here. First of all, the word uddaret means upliftment. So what is upliftment? Upliftment is progress in life. It is progress across every dimension of life. That we understand. We want progress. We want physical health progress. We want the mind to become stronger and energetic. We want to have financial strength. We want to have familial strength. Family should be strong and powerful. We want the communities to be non-conflictual. There's so many ways of trying to understand progress. There are progresses across the board: scientific progress, social progress. There is technological progress. Progress in every way is implied in the very first word here, that is uddaret. So uddaret means the upliftment applied, of course, to the individual. So the first point here is to recognize the difference between upliftment and degradation, and that's what the verse is going to talk about. There is, at any given point in our life, either we are moving upward or we are moving downward. And then maybe the third possibility is this type of stagnation. But that stagnation is actually just another downward turn. It's not really like just a non-moving state. That stagnation is actually a slowly dripping downward. So so in life, at any given point, anybody is either moving upward or downward, and that can change moment to moment, even hour to hour, minute to minute, thought to thought. It can change, emotion to emotion. It can change. So what Sri Krishna Bhagwan is teaching us here, that uddareta atmanatmanam. So the actual breaking of the sandhi is uddared atmana uddareda atmananam. That means you are to uplift yourself. One should uplift oneself by the self. one should uplift by the self. So there's two selves here. What does it mean? It means that the word self here is used in terms of the mind. So through the mind, we can uplift ourselves. That's what the translation is. It's correct. Elevate yourself through the power of your mind. That's a good way to translate this verse. Because the mind has tremendous power, and that power, we can deliberately, intentionally utilize that power to uplift ourselves, to uplift the mind itself towards the Atma. So, the word Atma is used in two ways here. Uddareta Atmanatmanam. The word Atma is used twice, by the self, the self. By the self meaning by the mind. The self, that is the Jivatma, that you're moving into the Atmic consciousness. The whole point is, we have it within us at any given point to recognize that the energy within the mind can go upward. But for that to happen, the rest of the verse is going to be very, very applicable. He's going to show us exactly how that is to be done. The second part of the verse, the second line, Natmanam avasadayet. This part over here, Natmanam avasadayet. Do not degrade the self. Do not allow the degradation. One should not cause the degradation of the mind, or one should not cause oneself to sink, or to become downhearted, to become disheartened. This happens in life more often than not. People are depressed, they're anxious, they're angry, they're frustrated, they feel lost, they feel troubled, they feel stuck somewhere, they feel drainage of energy. The drainage of energy is what is talked about here. Natmanam avasadayet. This word avasadayet, it means it refers to degradation, to sinking, to the lowering of that power. The first part of the verse is taking it upward, taking the energy upward. The second part of the verse is bringing the energy down. And that energy comes down because of ajnan, ignorance, lack of wisdom, lack of realization. So this is a command of Sri Krishna Bhagavan in the Gita. He's teaching all of us that you have power, point number one. Point number two, utilize it in a way that is truly uplifting. But how do we make that distinction? Due to ignorance, just the opposite is there. Just the opposite is there. We feel that that if I just go with whatever impulses are in my mind, then that is what the ego will want that. But that's a degradation. And to perceive degradation as degradation is the stopping of degradation. And to perceive upliftment as upliftment, or the phenomena that we call upliftment as upliftment, is the beginning of true development forward. And then the next two parts, Atmaiva Yatmura Bandhura, very important. That the mind is its own friend. That means the mind and the Atma are friends. I mentioned this yesterday. They are very deep, close friends. But what can happen? Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. That the same mind can become one's mortal enemy. It is really something. It's really something. When an individual truly begins to understand one's nature, this truth about the friend and the enemy, that is the mind itself that is the cause of all of this mess within. It is the cause of great development. And that requires a very keen awareness of the intrinsic truth within this verse. See, we read this verse, we can understand it, we can intellectually grasp it. I've read it thousands of times in my life. even talked about it with many people. That doesn't mean Sachin has absorbed this completely. Real absorption of the truth is the only thing that matters. Real absorption of the Gita verses. Bhagavad Gita is not something that is just to be thought over or contemplated or debated or commentaries written and pravachans given and lectures given and all that. Those things are all starting points. It is to be absorbed internally. And when that happens, in the chapter 18, Arjuna tells Sri Krishna, he says to Sri Krishna, Nashto moha smritir labdva. That means that my moha is gone. Arjuna became enlightened at the end there. The whole teaching was absorbed inside of him. And that absorption, now what is that absorption? Let's go further into this. How do we absorb this? If we are interested in realizing this truth, what is the way to absorb this? Well, first of all, there are several stages in this. One is to understand it intellectually. I think we understand this pretty well intellectually. We understand how we are our own worst enemy, we are our own best friend. We understand that energy can move up and it can go down. We understand there's energy within the mind. We understand all this thing. Okay, fine. We talked about it many times. Now, what is the next thing to be done to actually absorb this? Well, the next thing is to take an unbiased, genuine, and real look at the mind and what the mind has done in the past for oneself, what the mind is doing now. It is an introspective, very clear and unbiased self-observation. That is, because without that, the upliftment will not happen. We will not know what is upliftment until we can clearly identify what is degradation. And that degradation is identified by experience, anubhav. That degradation is identified by anubhav in the sense that if a person feels dysphoria meaning uneasiness, negativity, physical symptoms because of emotional stuff going on, we already know that there's a degradation. It's instantaneously available for us. We don't need somebody else to even tell us that, usually. We detect it. Oh, there's something is not right inside of me. I don't feel good. Even sometimes we have a conversation with someone and they make some comment and we feel some disturbance inside. We feel some agitation inside. That's a degradation of energy. So to not allow energy to degrade at all, that is the true mastery that is talked about in this verse. And that means we sit silently. Now there's ways of doing this. We've talked about Navda Bhakti, that's Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasam, and we're doing that daily also. We're doing some mantras and chanting and all that. That is all part of the 9 forms of devotion. That helps the mind to gain a certain stability and resonate with the divine. But when it begins to resonate with the divine, then the mind has wisdom to uplift itself. So those who are adherents of Advaitic path, they love this verse. This is the verse for the Advaita Vedanta. You know, it is the most practical thing, and it is also something that one can really apply. So any sadhana done, whether it is Chamunda Devi mantra or whether it is Namah Shivaya mantra or whether it is the Sri Krishna mantra or the Jesus prayer or whatever it might be, whatever prayers and bhajans and whatever is done, Advaita Vedanta is going to say it is done so you can eventually realize this verse only. To realize the truth of this verse internally, so the upliftment of the mind, by the mind, into the Brahmic consciousness can finally begin. The true upliftment has to do with recognizing the internal enemy. The word ripu is used there. Ripu means what? It's an enemy. Ripus is the actual Sanskrit word that means enemy. So atmaiva ripur atmanaha. The mind is its own enemy. This is worth reflecting upon in depth. You know, at some point, we would need, to really go into that, we need 7-8 hours of dialogue in like in a small group, to just open the meaning of this, open meaning and reflect internally. What is an inner enemy? Why is the mind an enemy of itself? Why is that even happening? So I'll give you some of my thoughts here today. And then you please think in your own way, please. And look at this yourself. Why is the mind its own enemy? Because the mind is functioning due to the influence of the Karana Sharira, the causal body. The Karana Sharira is the conglomeration of unending desires. And it is continuously trying to fulfill unending desires. And in doing so, it gets totally mixed, it gets totally lost, it loses wisdom, and it uses all of its built-up energy to try to keep fulfilling them again and again and again and again. And in doing so, it completely destroys its internal energy reservoir. That's what happens. That's why humanity suffers. If you look at Buddha's eightfold path, his first, actually it's four noble truths. The first noble truth is life is suffering. Why is there suffering? This is the reason why. Because the mind does not have the wisdom of realizing that desires that are coming from the causal body into the Sukshma Sharira, these desires need to synchronize together, not get hyper-focused and just take different branches again and again and again. Bahushaka hanantascha buddhayo vivasayinam. This is in the Bhagavad Gita also. The buddhi is gotten like these branches of a tree. Bahushaka, many branches. It's just split, fragmentation. In other words, that is what is causing the Jivatma to be totally trapped within Maya. And the whole purpose of the Gita, particularly this verse, which is so powerful, it's a very famous verse actually, for those who are students of the Gita, that we have an opportunity in the now, in the present, to totally, once and for all, grab hold of all of our power. Grab hold of the mind's power. Who is going to grab hold of that power? We are, the me. But even if you say, if I'm an egotistical sense, okay, I want to grab hold of my power. Okay, start with that. Better way to do it is to say, this power is coming from Paramatma, I don't want to misuse it. That's a better way. But the fact of the matter is, when we recognize that the enemy, the word enemy is referring to one who is going to cause you harm. So the mind is its own enemy. And the mind is its own best friend. Now this seems contradictory. How can that be? How can it be that the mind is its own enemy? How can it be that the mind is its own best friend? How is that even possible? Or why is that the case? The actual answer to this question is an intrinsic realization of the dissolving of all degradation. When all degradation of the mind stops, one realizes fully what is degradation, but not before that. Because before that, there's still some dripping down, there's still the lowering of power, lowering of consciousness. So, the internal mechanism that is the mind, it is just that. It is a mechanism that has profound power, and it can be taken to vanquish the enemy. Because what is the enemy? Anything within the mind that damages the internal energy. Anything. And so take anger, for example. Anger actually can be used in a very focused, meaningful, and beneficial manner. It can be. Sometimes that is needed because you're focused for some bigger purpose. It isn't like our usual anger, we just get upset with something. It's not like that. It is the mastery over that emotion. So even what we call negative emotions they still have, they're not completely negative. They have some purpose behind them to function in the world, to use them as needed in the world. But at the same time, they are not to just be opened up again and again and again. So similarly, the true elevation further is a continuous day by day realization of the progress being made. How do we recognize the progress? We will experience more joy, we will experience more clarity, there is more wisdom, more understanding, and the capacity, now listen to this, is very interesting, the capacity and the ability to tolerate the ignorance in the world. हम हिंदी में कहते हैं जो दूसरे का जो बंधन है, अज्ञान है, वो हम सहन कर सकते हैं. We have tolerance, सहनशीलता. It's called it's that ability to recognize this, what the world is going through. We see it. It is called Sakshi Bhav in Vedanta. We observe everything, but we never identify with the disturbance outside. We talked about this before. So when you pull all these pieces together, the mind now begins to evolve. It grows further. It's actually a growth within the brain, within the mind. There's a lot of neuroscience behind it also. So this can be looked at from a neuroscientific point of view. Uddareda atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet. Not recognize the mind, that it's because of its natural tendencies, its conditioning, its old thought loops and patterns and other things like that, it begins to degrade, the degradation. And we see this with the body. If we don't move the body, don't have proper diet, don't have proper exercise, just lying around, not doing anything, the body becomes tamoguni, mind becomes tamasic, it becomes unhealthy, it becomes, so it has to be maintained so that the health of the body can be maintained, right? We understand that. Similarly, the health of the mind is implied in this verse, to keep the mind extremely healthy. And in that health of the mind, there is expansion of joy. We're doing service for others, even doing good things for the family, wishing well for others, just some sadhuta ke jo gun hai, not bringing negative emotion inside. And when all of that happens, the powers of the mind awaken. So that's why we do the mantra sadhana also. This, the different mantras we do that to directly tap into the power and prevent that power from degrading. That is why in the Hindu iconography we have the Bhagwan Shiv and the Devi particularly, and even Sri Krishna Bhagwan and Vishnu, they have these weapons. They hold all these weapons. What are those weapons after all? Those weapons, in an intrinsic sense, every one of those weapons is representative of stopping the degradation of energy, cutting off the Rakshasas, killing the all those forces that are damaging the internal power. And then the other thing that happens, a distorted type of power opens up. The distorted type of power is the ego-driven power, like Ravan and all the other Rakshasas and all that. What is that? They had a lot of energy, but it was all distorted. It was all through ego and ahankar. So that is also not a path. And so all of this thing is quite profound, because if you look at the nature of the world today, we see that the power is available, energy is available, but is it used for upliftment or is it used for damage? And if you look at from a global point of view, the various countries in the world, you kind of wonder why is it that everyone just cannot come together and say, we're one people, one family, let's come together, stop all the wars, and let's really uplift humanity, stop poverty, give everybody education, give everybody food, water, clothing, shelter, and really develop each person. Why can that not happen? It's simply because of the me versus the you, the fear that is there, the power grabs that are there, the need to dominate others, and and the problem is, even if one person has that, the others will have to defend themselves against that. And so that's why this entire material world is a battlefield because of that reason. And we have people coming in, new people that are being born again and again and again into this world. So from the Gita's point of view, this is the way this world is. You're not going to change this world that much. How much anybody can change this world? Maybe make it a little bit better. New people come in and destroy anything that has been developed, and the cycle starts all over again. So Sri Krishna Bhagwan's opinion, I'm not saying this, Sri Krishna is saying this. He says, get this world out of your head. It's there, live in it, do the seva for it. Don't keep attention on this world. This world is an endless, it's an upside down tree, and it is going to continue, persist again and again. His point is, take care of yourself, keep attention on you. Don't worry about anybody else. And that's a big teaching. That seems like, then do we not do anything for the... No, on the contrary. If we keep true attention ourselves and we encourage others to do the same thing, then from the inside out the world transforms. That is what our Rishi Parampara have done that. What did Ramakrishna Paramans do? What did Swami Vivekananda do? What did Ramana Maharishi do? What did Paramans Yogananda do? What did they all do? They all took steps to evolve themselves. Their attention was 100% on themselves. And in doing so, whatever organizations or other things that were built around them, that was just a resonance from what they were. And then that really has the impact of opening the door into mukti. These other things, social service organizations and other things like that, they are good. Their intention is very good, but they don't have a prayer of even solving this problem at the very root level. So the simple reason behind that, because they're not at this level. Look at this verse. It's looking at direct internal transformation. You see, I myself have worked in social service agencies for years and years and years. Not a single organization even comes close to this. Simply because it's all band-aid work. It's superficial stuff based on very restrictive types of missions and whatnot. But the actual solution to human problems is in the Bhagavad Gita. It is actually within all of us. It's not about a religion. It is this real solution is from inside out. If a caterpillar wants to become a butterfly, it has to go through metamorphosis to become the butterfly. And this is the thing. And until it happens from inside out, the world, the way the world is now, it is going to just shift a little bit here and there. And yes, there are technological developments. Yes, those are all beautiful. But at the same time, the internal technology of this inner development is what we are aiming for. And if that really happens, can you imagine what life would be like if thousands of people began to realize that they should not degrade themselves by their own mind? Wow! हम जो कहते हैं कि चमत्कार होना चाहिए in life में, यही चमत्कार है. This is the chamatkar, and if that actually happens, that is the biggest chamatkar. That is the biggest krupa. That is the biggest grace. Then everything falls in alignment. Families come in alignment. Negative thinking stops. The harmful action stops. Harmful competition stops. Aiding others becomes a heavenly world. Now, if we want to make a heavenly world, we have to be heavenly first. Sachin cannot encourage anybody to do this unless Sachin is doing this himself. And then trying to do this, once we resonate in that state, we get into this state of the Atmic realization. Then whoever comes around us, by the grace of God, they get blessed. And the sansar continues. Sansar to aise hi rehna. Sansar that's the nature of sansar. It is within the three gunas, sattva gun, rajagun, tamogun. And once we go outside the sansar, in the divine bodies, a transcendental thing, that's a different matter. But as long as we're here, even Swami Chinmayananda explained this beautifully. He says that sansar is going to remain just like this. It is not going to change, and it goes through cycles, the yugas and all that. There are some shifts and turns that happen. Sansar exists so we can see the expressed Maya and evolve out of it. That is called Brahma Vidya. Otherwise, the Apara Vidya, which is in the universities, that is available, and that is also part of the knowledge. This is Brahma Vidya. So Brahma Vidya allows us to recognize the Brahman, which is who we are, by taking all of our power and our energy, applying it towards that, and in that state to interact with the world. You know what happens to the world when a person interacts with it? Isme hi jagat ka kalyan hai. Anywhere an enlightened being goes, that tremendous power is present and everybody gets liberated, it gets affected by that. Or that's a root level technology, it's a root level enlightenment. Bahut badi baat hai ye sab. It's a very, very profound thing, and it is very beautiful. Yes, of course, everything has its place. Medical science, psychology, and social service organizations. Let me just give you one example before I close. In Delaware, we have this Division of Family Services, Child Protective Service. The number of cases is growing. Each social worker has 100 kids under caseload. That entire organization is the result of tremendous damage within the society. Thousands of children being placed under the state's care. Why is that? Why does that system exist? Because of the degradation in the family, degradation of energy at the root level. And then because of that, now you have this other organization and state has to intervene, and they have to do something to deal with all this. They can't just have children roaming around without food, water, clothing, shelter. See? You see where it begins. We're trying to solve these problems after they're taken their height. Find the root of it. And from each family becomes strong. As soon as a child is born, the parents need to harness these truths and say, we don't want to degrade the family. And then from there, nobody knows what happens in the future. But the fact of the matter is that what we consider the world today is the result of energy damage. It is not the result of energy harnessing. In some places it is, certainly. But there's many places where this massive amounts of energy has been damaged, and then the suffering continues. The suffering takes exponential states. That's what this is. This thing about Ripuratmanaha, if you want to elaborate on that, I could elaborate this way, that once that enemy takes hold, the suffering takes exponential growth, leading to terrible, terrible things. And if the opposite happens, the upliftment happens, the enlightenment takes exponential growth. Amazing. All right. So anyway, I wanted to share that today. Somehow that was in my mind this morning. I said, let's do that. So thank you for listening to that, and just give me your blessings, so that we can all evolve this way.